Greetings and welcome to another video by Sir Mike the Hedge Knight. We have another new character. It is Ser Duncan the Tall. What's the first thing that we notice? Looking at his might, not sure if there are any characters that, when they show these guys at level 350, 7 stars in the summon, we're going to see their top level skill and top level passive and all those good things, but there's no equipment. So I think a might of 203,643. I want to say that's tops. Not sure. I'd have to go back and check the other recent additions to the game, the Night King and Bran, see if they're somewhat in that area. But 200,000 with no equipment is seems pretty strong. And as I've said in prior videos, one of the things you worry about in games like this is something called power creep, where as new characters come out, they make them more and more powerful to entice people to buy. Because if they're the same as all the characters you have in your roster, I don't need them. They're putting these new characters out to generate revenue, get people to spend some money. Makes sense. And to do that, they've got to put a little carrot at the end of the stick, and they got to make them just a little bit stronger, and that's power creep. So we may be seeing some power creep here. I think we have quite a bit recently. And just looking at the stats, now he is a yellow or gold, I think they call it gold, protector. And look at that defense stat. I don't recall what Brienne's stat is, maximum level without any gear. I believe she cracked 60. I don't think she cracked 65. So this could be the strongest defensive character in the game. So a lot of defense, not so much attack, as you would expect from protectors, and a whole bunch of hit points. And as you'll see, as we're going to dive right into Dunk's abilities, they've introduced a couple of new features. I always like when there's something new, something unique. And these, at least one of them is definitely going to be unique. Let's jump into Dunk's active skill. We have a normal speed skill. Dunk taunts the enemy team for 4 turns, grants himself a 35% max HP shield, and gains 4 Dunk's Vow. So the Dunk's Vow sounds like it's going to be unique to Dunk, unless they give it to Egg when they introduced Egg as well, but unlikely. And when we click on Dunk's Vow, it's a type of counter. Looks like it doesn't expire until he uses them. Counters for 150% of his defense. And we just saw his defense could go as high as 65 without equipment, without buffs. So this counter, this is going to be a real count. This isn't going to be like a little annoying counter. It's like, yeah, I'll just hit him anyway. Counters for 150% defense when Dunk's weakest ally is struck by a skill. And this is pretty good. We've seen counters where, well, if you hit Dunk, he'll counter. Okay, well, then I just won't hit Dunk. I'll wait till his taunt wears off and I'll use my skills on someone else, thereby circumventing the counter. Generally, when you're fighting in war or you're fighting in raid, you're trying not to take everyone out equally. You're trying to whittle someone down and wipe them out. So now you've got someone a little weak and you're saving up, you've got a good skill, a good single target attack, and you're about to hit him. Well, if that's the weakest ally on Dunk's team, he's got 4 of these vows, he's going to hit you back for 150% of his defense. So it's a different counter mechanic. It looks like it, doesn't, some of them, they expire when the skill expires, when the taunt expires. Kind of like this. And it's based on his better stats. So, normal speed for a taunt, I think, is also pretty good. A lot of taunters, I think, are a little bit slower. 4 turns, not tremendous. I've seen a lot more, but you see a little bit less as well, and a nice HP shield. So, pretty good active skill. Jumping over to his leadership ability, we'll now see the other skill they're introducing, and this is right now unique to Dunk, but sounds like something that they may wind up using for other characters in the future. Dunk begins the battle with 1 block and a 2-turn taunt. So let's take a look at block. Block prevents the next instance of damage from an ability expended upon use. So an ability, I believe, is a leadership ability, a passive ability, or a skill, like an active ability. So it sounds like these blocks will not be busted by gem damage, but they'll be busted by the 3 things that I mentioned above. Typically offensive skills, although there are some passives that do damage and all those good things. This block I mean, I look at it almost like an HP guard, with the exception that an HP guard can be hit by gem damage. So it's actually it's actually better than an HP guard. When you fight against, trying to think, Brienne with her iconic has a couple HP guards. Grey Worm, who you see on a lot of fire teams, has 15. He's got not 15. He's got 3, I think, HP. It takes so long to get him down. But when you see that someone is really close to an HP guard, what do you typically do? Well, I don't want to use a skill that's going to do 30, 40, 50,000 damage when the character is only about 1,000 above their HP guard. So I'll do a gem match. I'll let the gems do 1,000. I'll break the HP guard. Now I'll unload with my skill. Well, that's not going to work with this block. The block isn't going to get triggered by gem damage. So the sword swings both ways. On the one hand, a character that's very low and has a block, well, I can just kill them with gem damage because the block's not going to kick in unless I use a skill. But unless you're playing a Baratheon team, a Baratheon gem popping team, how much gem damage are you really doing? So many teams, most of their damage, with the exception, I guess, of fire teams. So fire, it sounds like, will get around these blocks, but like, think about Stark teams. They brittle someone. What's the point of brittle? All skills will do double damage. And then you have even more when you're talking about Ghost or Ned or Battle of the Bastards John. So, they're saving up for that one massive hit. And this block just shrugs it off, just absolutely shrugs it off. So, getting back to his leadership ability, because there's a little bit more below. This is where he gets pretty interesting. But he begins the battle with a block and a 2-turn taunt. All team members gain an indefinite 5% defense buff. Now, that indefinite only comes at a certain star rank. I don't recall how many. It's a pretty good amount of stars. So you're not going to start with that at in the beginning. They think they do get a defense buff. It's only a couple of turns, and a 5% max HP shield. Okay, so you want to turn, essentially a turn 0 taunter, kind of like a Merrin or a Walder Rivers. Now you've got Dunk as lead. He starts the battle taunting and with a block, which helps. Moving down to his passive. When an ally's hit points drop below 50%, Dunk grants them a block. So here we have other ways of getting blocked. Dunk starts himself with a block as a leader. When people get wounded, he gives them that, quasi HP guard type thing that gives them some survivability. And here's where it gets real interesting. When he stops taunting, Dunk grants each team member a block. That includes himself, by the way. Now, if you look at his leadership ability, he starts with the taunt, and look at that. There's a reason it's only 2 turns. You kind of want to get that taunt out of there so that he can start spreading the blocks around. So he's got a block. 2 turns later, he gives everyone a block. So now he's got 2 blocks. They've all got 1. And then later on, when their hit points drop below 50, he'll throw them another block. So really good defensive character. I can see a lot of interesting things here. And remember, it doesn't just have to be his leadership taunt or his taunt on his normal speed skill. If you've got Talisa, if you've got the Dragonstone Meister, if you have someone that'll place taunt on him, every time that taunt stops, he's going to throw a bunch of blocks around. In addition, when an ally blocks, Dunk gains a renew and a 10%, like his defense isn't big enough, so he gets a 10% defense buff for 2 turns. Now, what I haven't really tried, I fought Dunk in Raid. He came out about a week ago. Incredible how same day somebody has them at level 350. I don't know how much that costs or if they work for the site, if they're developers with accounts or whatever, but it's uncanny how you see these characters get released and within 24 hours there's a bunch of level 350 of them running around. Night Kings, Brands, Dunks, you name it. So fought against Dunk, and I do see that he builds the renew fast. The reaction time in his passive says once, but it says when an ally blocks. So what if I'm wondering if all allies, if everyone has a block because his taunt ended, and then someone uses an AoE attack against the entire team, that's going to trigger 5 blocks. I don't know off the top of my head if he's going to get 1 renew or 5. It really should be 5 because the blocks are expended. The only thing that I'm not sure is his reaction once here under Unyielding Frame 3. So even though I fought him in Raid, I never really paid attention to it, but I will tell you when I fight him in Raid, he builds up renew pretty fast. And we all know how powerful renew. So we know how powerful renew is, right? Here we have a character that has possibly the highest defense in the game. He's a protector. he has ways of getting a defense buff. His ability gives him a shield, 35% max shield. His leadership ability, everybody gets a 5%, indefinite 5% defense. So between his innate defense, his shield, his leadership ability, the gear you're going to put on him. So here's a character that's going to be very difficult to wear down more and more so as the combat goes on. And then on top of everything, as you're starting to whittle him down and cut through these blocks in that defense, just a matter of time until he builds up to 5 to 10 renew. And I think we've all been there at some point in the Crowns Challenge when you're fighting. I think it's like a Sansa or a Caitlyn when they get up to 10 renew. I think we all know how tough it is when somebody gets a whole bunch of renew, how hard it is to take that character down. Now tack on a defense that's going to be, 70 to 80,000, perhaps more with buffs and all those good things. Very, very strong defensive character. So that's all we've got for Dunk. What do we think about Dunk? And I'm a little torn. When I first read about Dunk, didn't really like him. Said, he's okay, no big deal. Then I fought him a little bit in raid, and I talked about him with my alliance members, and they had some ideas and started thinking, we could go to this team and he can go to that team, and I started to turn the corner on Dunk, and I started to say, boy, you know what? I think there's some really good. One of the things that one of my alliance members brought up is a lot of alliances struggle with Gold Viserion in Legendary Assault. And the problem with Gold Viserion, I still think he's broken, but the problem with Gold Viserion is he does a single target attack after turn 3, and then he gets pacified. He sleeps 3 turns. He wakes up. He does his 200% AOE, which is strong, but not, it doesn't wipe everybody. But then he fills up his stamina, and the next turn he does a 500% AOE. So a back-to-back 200%, then 500% AOE attack. I mean, there are some characters that'll survive it, but they're really beat up. Imagine he's about to do that 500% AOE, and Dunk's taunt expires, and everybody has a block. They just eat it. So Viserion's biggest attack will do nothing to the entire team. What it will do is give Dunk a whole bunch of renew and a defense bonus. So that was pretty, so I started to think about all these interesting things that you might be able to do with Dunk and how you slide him here and how you slide him there. And then I thought, so I turned the corner on him. And then, the days went by and I'd go back into raid and I started to see Dunk all over the place. And I got to tell you, I haven't lost too many fights against Dunk. Now I do have a fairly strong Baratheon gem popping team, which, they're about to nerf Brienne, which I think we kind of all knew was coming. It's really disappointing because I've been building her for a bit and I'm just about to get her to 7. I'm finally going to get her to 7 stars, and now they're nerfing her, which, you could have you kind of saw that coming. Everybody in Gold 1 and supposedly in the Iron Throne, like there's Brienne shield teams all over the place. She was way overpowered. They had to do something. So they're going to knock her down a little bit. But fighting a lot in raid, starting to see Dunk a lot. I think I lost to a good team with Dunk. So I don't mean Dunk at like 100,000 less than, I'm up around 890 with my primary team. I'm just under. I fought Dunk max level on some million, maybe a 1,000,001 team. I think there was a 1,124 team. I had no problem. Now again, my Baratheons are strong. Granted, yes. So Dunk, maybe he gives other teams problems. More, the blocks that he puts out, gem damage will cut right through those blocks. The blocks don't trigger. So my Baratheon team is doing a lot of damage with gems and all their gem critical buffs and all those good things. So perhaps that's why. But I gotta I targeted him first. He gets his taunt and he puts his blocks to the other people, and then I use an AOE, a smaller AOE like Melisandre that doesn't really do much. And okay, that gets rid of the block. Then Stannis comes in with his AOE, hits really hard, type of thing. I haven't had a lot of trouble with him in raid, and that made me turn the corner again. So I did a 360. I did a 180 to say, oh, I like Dunk now, and then did another 180 to say, I don't know. I think individually he is a very strong character, perhaps the best defensive character in the game. What don't I like about him? There's no synergy. One of the things we've learned from Alliance War, even more so than Raid back in the day, what we've learned from Alliance War, when you're fielding your 4 teams for war, I think many of us know by now that synergy is more important than might. I would take a 600,000 might synergistic team over a 700,000 hodgepodge team that doesn't work together. And that 600 team is going to rip them to shreds every time. Where's Dunk's synergy other than him being a big defensive guy? So if you put him on a defensive team like a shield team, well, what are the biggest problems with shield teams right now? They don't do enough damage, not enough offense. Dunk's not giving you any offense. He's got his Dunk's vow for a little bit of counter. It's good. It's not enough. He's a defensive character. If I put him on an offensive team, let's say like a fire team, a Targaryen team, or a black fire team, I got to take someone out. And taking someone out means now I'm not putting enough fire on. So now I've got this defensive guy that's okay. I need to keep my Targaryens alive. I need to keep my purple Rhaenyra, my black fire members, purple Rhaenyra and green Rhaenys. I need to keep them alive so that they can become enraged. Okay, that's great. But now I'm taking someone out that was also essential to the team, that was either adding fire or amplifying fire or healing me in some way. He just doesn't have any. He's raw, pure defense, and he's a tough target. But if he's not going to be synergistic with anyone else I put on the team, then I almost may as well put a hodgepodge team together. And as I think many of us have seen in war, when you see these hodgepodge teams, don't you go after them? You know, when you're looking at your opponents and you see a really tough matchup, you go, oh man, this I don't know if I could beat that. And if they're a really strong fire team, you know, or I'm not sure, a really strong Baratheon team, okay, Baratheon's a weak on defense, maybe I can. When you see a really high might hodgepodge team, don't you almost kind of crack a smile and say, okay, I could beat this team. I can go get 800 trophies by beating this team because they have no synergy. They don't work together. That is my big concern with Dunk. So again, individually think the guy is great. If they introduce other characters over time where like other characters also generate block or do things with block, like what Dunk does when the block expires, he gets some renew. Maybe when Egg comes out, he does something with his passive. Like when any team member uses a block, he adds a fire to someone. You know, he hits someone or he heals the team for 5% of the max hit point. Okay, at least there's some synergy there. But right now, Dunk seems kind of like he starts off in the show. He's kind of on his own. And right now, that is my problem with Dunk. Comment below. Let me know what you think about Ser Duncan the Tall, and we will see you soon.